Tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, episode 12. Too legit to quit. Hey, 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 hey. That brought back a lot of memories. It's your boy Icon with some DC TV. Red Eyes Entertainment is back. And we are wrapping up Legends because I'm going to be honest with y'all because we got one more episode left. This was the second to last episode of the season, but this particular episode, and I understand why they called it Too Legit to Quit, but for the love of God, this episode legit felt like the series finale of Legends of Tomorrow. There was a moment where I'm watching the episode, and then I'm just like, why does it feel like this is over? But we'll get into all that. We'll get onto that right now. So this episode starts where the last one ended when Robot Astra had stabbed Gideon in the back and Gideon was dying. So the Legends brought her into the med bay and they tried to, fix her up, but they couldn't fix her up. They said that Gideon, the ship Gideon, is the only person, well, the only thing that can actually save, like human Gideon. The problem is, if they turn the ship back on and, reactivate Robot Gideon, she's going to suck all the air out of the Wave Rider and kill everybody on the ship. But then they just figured, they were just like, well, we have to save Gideon by any cost. They were just like, if we got to stop the ship, we'll stop the ship. We stopped her once, we can stop her again. So they're just like, all right, fine, let's turn the ship back on. So they turn the ship back on, and as soon as they turn the ship back on, Robot Gideon tried to kill him by sucking all the oxygen and all the air out of the ship. Human Gideon had said to Astra, don't forget Protocol 276. Then when the ship was sucking all the oxygen out of the ship, and then the ship was trying to kill everybody, Astra had said, she was like, Protocol 276. And then the ship was just like, oh, that's the Gideon protocol, which means that you can't kill, like if Gideon's in danger, like you have to protect Gideon at all costs from, Gideon can't be destroyed or can't self-destruct. She was like, why would you say that protocol? And then she looked over and she was like, who is that woman on the med bay? And then then Astra was like, that's you, like that's Gideon. And she's like, damn it, because, and she was like, how am I human? And then they had to explain to her about the magic and everything. And then they said that since this is Gideon, this is a human version of Gideon. They said you can't kill us as long as we're with Gideon. But the problem is, it's not like they can just follow Gideon around for the rest of their lives. They had to come up with a way, for both sides to exist, because the ship legitimately said, the moment one of you are no longer around Gideon, I'm going to kill you. And she said, I'm going to kill everybody on this ship at some point because the Legends need to die. So, but there was one room on the ship, thanks to Zari, that actually didn't have power in it. So Gideon wrote this. The ship Gideon couldn't access that room. So the whole team ended up going in there, and then human Gideon went back to go talk to Robot Gideon, and the two of them basically had a one-on-one conversation to decide what they were going to do going forward. And then after having the conversation, the compromise that both Gideons had came up with is that Robot Gideon would let everybody go back home, go back to their own time. But if she does that, the Legends have to retire. Like retire, like no more Legends of Tomorrow, like the show is over. And the Legends weren't, like, nobody was feeling that idea. And a lot of the Legends, but the Legends, they didn't trust Gideon. And they were just like, how do we know that if we, once we all go home, how do we know she's not going to sick robots after us and, and try to kill us? So then Gary had came up with the idea. He was like, well, if Robot Gideon shows them their futures, it'll prove that she doesn't kill them, because of their futures. So everybody just has to sit there and just like watch, they're going to break that one rule. They're going to show everybody their future. So this way they can the ship can earn a little trust. And then everybody will agree to go back to their timeline and they can put this whole thing behind them. So of course, in true Legends fashion, they do the complete opposite. And while both Gideons are trying to come up with a plan that everybody can agree with, the team, the Legends, they're sitting up there trying to figure out a way to blow up the ship and kill Gideon. Nate had a time carrier, but he said we need to power it because the courier is dead. Their plan was, if they could power the time courier, they can use the courier to go back to their time, but then they can also, once they open up the portal that they can walk through, then Astra can blow up the ship and destroy Robot Gideon once and for all. So that was the plan. And in order for that to happen, though, they had to, there was a charging station that was in the armory room. So Spooner was the only person that was small enough to fit through the vents, because remember, if she goes out of the room and then Gideon sees that she left the room, she's gonna try to kill her. Spooner was funny too, because when they said to Spooner, they were just like, you're the only one small enough that can go in there. She just looked around and she was like, okay. She's like, y'all want me to John McClane this shit? She was like, all right. And then she ends up going through the vents. While she's going through the vents trying to get to the charging station, the rest of the team has to go out to go see Robot Gideon, so her and regular Gideon can tell them all about their futures. And needless to say, when she showed them their futures, everyone was not happy about it. Like, certain people were, but other people weren't. Zari, her future is that her makeup line ends up becoming a huge success, and she ends up making billions and billions of dollars. She receives an award. She's on Time magazine as one of the most successful women on the planet, and blah, blah, blah. And she legit wasn't happy about that. Like, she was actually really upset. We find out that her problem was, and she said this to Nate, she thought that she couldn't even believe that she's been on the ship for 3 years. And even I couldn't believe she's been on the ship. I was like, damn, it's been 3 years. But she said, she thought she'd have more time to actually be a hero. She said being a financial success and being a business success, that is something that's very cool and something for her to to take pride in. But she legit wanted to be a hero because she felt being a hero made an actual difference in the world. Whereas like the makeup line, she didn't feel like it made a difference. And then she was just like, I don't have my totem. She noticed when they showed her the video of her accepting that award, she didn't even have the totem on her wrist. And then she was just like, wow, like that sucks, because I basically go back to being the person that I was before I even got on the ship. Behrad, he basically got a job on Sesame Street. Like, he ends up, he's super sober now. He has his guitar, and he basically just got a job playing music for kids on children's shows. And he was perfectly fine with that. He was happy. He was happy entertaining the children. He even made his own. He even had a record. Like, Behrad had his own record out. It was legit a record. Like, it was like a record. So, and one thing we have to remember about the Tarazis, they're not actually from the current timeline. Like, they're not from 2022. As of right now, Zari's probably maybe like 7 years old, and Behrad's probably like 3 or 4 or whatever, because in the current present timeline, both of them are kids. Like, the two of them, the Behrad and the Zari that we know, they're from the future. Like, the two of them are actually from the future. So once they leave, like, that's it. Like that's it. They'll never see the Legends again. Nate ends up writing a book. Like, once he gets kicked off the ship and then he goes back home, he ends up basically like writing a book about all his accomplishments and all his achievements. Everything that he went through with the time travel and being a superhero that does time travel. So that was basically his whole thing, but he still plans on living in the totem with Zari 1.0, and I don't know how that's supposed to happen if Zari 2.0 and Behrad are supposed to go back to their time and they're from the future. I don't know how Nate's gonna get himself in the totem. Like, that one doesn't make sense to me. But he did speak about building his legacy with Zari. And again, I just don't understand like how he's supposed to do that, but they never explained that. Astra ends up running for president, running for governor, running for Congress. She was on a tour bus. She was on a red, white, and blue tour bus. People were asking her questions, and she was talking about saving the American people. So Astra becomes a politician, and she didn't seem happy about that either, because her whole thing was, because, like, Astra's like, she's the perfect politician. Like, she's the perfect person to be a politician. The problem is she got used to having friends. She got used to having a family around her. Because remember, on the Constantine series, her mom died. And John Constantine himself, he's no longer around. And because she spent all that time in hell, Astra legit doesn't have any family. So if she goes into a life of politics, then she'll just never see her friends again and she'll be alone. They also dropped some old school legends too, because when Gideon had first told them they need to retire, somebody was like, legends don't retire. And they were just like, well, what about the Hawks? What about Jax? What about, what about, Ray? What about Ray's wife? Like Mona, like they named like so many people. We never saw Gary's future, which I thought was weird. But then I guess we found out there was a reason for that later. So then it comes to the captains. So when Sarah and Ava sat down to go see their future, they thought their future was going to be based on, like maybe Ava has a spy agency, or, Sarah's doing something, like she's like the hero of Star City or some crap like that. Like, they thought it was going to be like this big adventurous, like cool thing. And they come to find out their future is that they have a daughter that's in summer camp. And when they showed the picture, when they showed their reaction, like once they realized that was their daughter and their whole future was based around them being moms, Sarah seemed okay with it. Ava in the beginning looked like she was not trying to have it. Like she just looked like hell no. Like that was her. Like that was the look that she had on her face. Like she was not trying to be nobody's mama. But there was nothing they can do. But then the two of them, they thought about being more domesticated, and that appealed to them. So they were actually on board with the whole thing. Now Spooner, because Spooner is still crawling around in the vents, she doesn't get a chance to actually come out to see Gideon, so she can get her, she can get her future told. So then Astra puts on a disguise. Astra basically cloned herself to look like Spooner, and then she went out to go take Spooner's place. We find out that Spooner, and I forgot this too. I forgot Spooner's not even from Spooner was from 1925, because although Spooner ended up in the present time because the mushroom sent her off to the future, she's legitimately from 1925. And Gideon told her that what happens is you end up going back to 1925, and then you and your mom start a clinic, and then you basically, do things for people who have like mental health issues, and you help save people. And Gideon even said, she said, you going back home actually corrects an anomaly, because due to the magical mushroom, you weren't supposed to get zapped out of your timeline anyway. So she said that the fact that you got sucked out of your timeline and got sent off to the future, this actually corrects that, because you're going back to where you belong, although you're an adult. Unfortunately, like Spooner herself wasn't there to hear that. Like Astra was the one that heard that. But then when Astra realized that she was going to go back to 1925, she was like, oh, but what about my friends and everything? And then she was just like, well, you'll never see them again. And it was also the mannerisms were pretty funny too, because when Spooner first sat down, since Spooner was basically Astra in disguise, she almost crossed her legs, and then she realized what she was about to do. Then she leaned over and had a beer or something. Gwen, they told Gwen he basically gets to go back to his timeline, and he retires on some big property land and a house and everything. He has acres and acres, but the catch is he doesn't get to be with Alan. He actually has to stay on the land, the reserve, the plantation. I don't know where I don't know where he lives, the acres of land. He has to stay there by himself, and he can't be with Alan because Alan obviously was supposed to die. So, but then when Ava found that out, she wasn't trying to hear it. And then her, along with Zari, who's trying to redeem, trying to do something heroic, the two of them had agreed that they were going to go back in time and save Alan before he died. They said that, right before Alan's supposed to get killed, Zari's going to create a windstorm, and then they're going to pull him out of the timeline, leave his dog tags on the floor so everybody thinks he died, and then they'll bring him onto the Wave Rider. They told Gwen he was against it at first, but then eventually he was just like, okay, he's like, if that's what you want to do, he was like, I won't stop you. But then Gideon got wind of it, because our Gideon, human Gideon, she knew that they were up to something. And then she got on the jump ship, and she went back in time, and she saved Alan before the Legends could. So then when Alan was on the ship, both Alan and Constantine, they hugged and embraced each other, they kissed, they told each other how they felt. And then there was this line that Gwen had said that, him and Alan always had. It was something about you'll, no matter where you are, no matter where you go, you'll be me and I'll be you, or something. Gwen said that to Alan, and Alan didn't know how to finish the rhyme. And then Gwen thought that was kind of weird, but he didn't really make a big deal out of it. And he asked him that question after they kissed. So that tells you something right there. And then, then after that, but he was just screwed. He was like, Alan's here, that's all that matters. So then Gideon ended up asking Gary to live with her on the ship. Gideon ended up becoming the new captain, because they said that the ship always has to have a captain. And since Gideon is both human and she has the mind of a computer, she's the perfect person to be the captain of the ship and be paired along with the robot Gideon. So Gideon's going to live on the ship because she has the human components, the human compassion to be able to save the timeline in a respectable, compassionate manner. And Gary, Gary, the two of them are in love, they get it on. So Gary's going to stay with her, and they said they're going to live on the ship together, and they're going to live happily ever after. And then they said, so they have a party, everybody's grieving, doing their thing. But then eventually everybody gets sent back to their timelines. They all agreed, and then, they signed the contract. And I'm watching this thing, I'm like, yo, this show is over. I was just if everybody goes home, and if Gideon ends up becoming the new captain, and her and Gary travel the timeline along with Robot Gideon to preserve the timeline, the show is basically over. And it's not even that the logic of the writing made the show over. the way that they did the episode, it legitimately felt like this was the last episode ever of Legends of Tomorrow. And I was just like, damn, this shit is a wrap. But then, but then later on, after everybody went back home and went to their timelines, Gary and Gideon were having dinner. Gary made this whole big thing, or he had Gideon make this French dish or whatever. Gideon asked him, she was like, "Oh, what is this?" And then he was like, "I don't know." And then he was like, "Do you know?" And then she was like, "No." And then Robot Gideon, she was like, "Why are you lying?" And she was like, "You know what that is." And then she was just like, "Yeah," but she's like, "I don't want to hurt Gary's feelings." And then Gary was like, "Nah." He was like, "Don't do that." He was like, "Don't dumb yourself down, you know what I'm saying, just to make me feel better." He's like, "Be you, be who you are." But he was like, but the whole thing is, he's like, if that's what you, he said, "I don't care how much smarter you are than me." He was like, "Just don't lie to me and like, we'll be perfectly fine." And then she immediately felt guilty. And then that's when she told Gary that Alan is actually a robot. She said that she discovered that Alan's death is a fixed point in history. And we know that all fixed points can't be changed. She said that Ava and Zari were planning on going there and saving Alan. You can't save Alan because saving Alan is a fixed point. And if you do, and she's like, if you do try to save Alan, then both of them would have been killed. So she's like, I went back in time. I snatched his DNA. I took Gwen's journal to try to get a feel for like his memories and his emotions. So this way he can have the personality traits and everything. Alan won't know the difference, and then the two of them can go together and be happily ever after, and Zari and Ava don't have to die. So then Gary freaked out because he was like, "Yo, you lied to me, you lied to everybody." And then he was just like, "Listen," he was like, "if this is the type of stuff that you're gonna do as being captain of the ship," he was like, "I love you and all, but I don't know if I can be here and do that." And then he got up and he walked away to take a breather. So then Robot Gideon, she was talking to our Gideon, and then she was just like, "Oh, what if he leaves?" And then Gideon was just like, "If he leaves, then he's no good for you. Then he ain't shit." And then she spoke to Gary, and then she was like, "Oh, like your presence here, it compromises Gideon. You need to get off the ship immediately." She was basically manipulating the whole situation. But then Gary was like, no, he was like, "I love her." And he said, despite her flaws, despite like, her making the wrong decisions, he said, "That's why I'm here. I'm here to help her with that. I'm here to guide her with that. I'm here to be her backbone, be her strength." And then she said, "If anything, I need to stick around in spite of all her wrong, like besides her wrongdoing, just so I can be there for her to help her make the right decisions." And then he was like, "Where is she?" And then she was like, "Oh, she's in the armory." And then Gary goes into the armory, and then Robot Gideon opened up the hatch and then killed Gary. So Gary got sucked out of the ship, and then she lied and told our Gideon, like, "Oh, he just decided to leave, like he didn't want to be with you anymore." So now our Gideon, like, human Gideon, she's upset because now she feels like she got dumped. She got ghosted. So now she's angry. She's like, "It's just as well." She was like, "I need to be focused on the timeline anyway." So now she's turned to like a cold, like a cold stone bitch, and like it's all business for her now, and she's just gonna rule the timeline with an iron fist. Gwen ended up going back to Constantine's like pocket dimension house, and when he was talking to Alan, Gwen knew that Alan was a robot, and he yanked the CPU right out of his head. And I feel like not only did he probably know it was fake because of the fact that they kissed each other, but it was also like, I feel like when he kissed him, that's when he was just like, "Okay, you're not real," which made him ask him about the rhyme, the saying, like, the saying that the two of them have. That's why he decided to ask that to begin with. But Gwen knew that he was a robot. Like I said, he ripped the CPU out. And Gwen's whole thing now is he's going to go back in time. I guess he has the time courier. He's going to go back in time, and he's going to try to save Alan on his own, not realizing that Alan's death is a fixed point, and if he tries to save him, he's going to die and kill himself. And that was how the episode ended. And this is going to be very interesting because one more episode of Legends to go, which is surprising because, like I said, if it wasn't, like, deadass, if it wasn't for the Alan twist at the end with Constantine finding out that he was a robot, if they never did that scene, once they all took the picture with each other and then everybody started fading out of the picture and the picture just ends with Gideon and Gary, that could have been the end of the show. Like, the show could have just ended right there. Like Legends would have been done. But, but plot twist, like the Gideons are, like are running wild and we got to save them. So I guess in the next episode, Gwen's going to try to like save Alan, then the Legends are going to try to stop him. And then at some point, somebody's going to tell him it's a fixed point. It's going to be this whole big thing. And then everybody's going to try to find a way they're going to save. I feel like in the season finale, what's going to happen is they're going to use Robot Alan to take the place of like real Alan. And part of me still holds out, I don't want to say hope, but there's a small part of me that still feels like the season where Sarah got sucked up by aliens, I still feel like at the end of the day, a robot is going to knock that Sarah out of the way and take that Sarah's place and save that particular Sarah, because the Sarah that we got now has superpowers. I feel like they're going to correct that. I don't know why. I feel like that moment is going to get rectified somehow. They're just playing the long game, but that could just be me. So like I said, that was it, and thank you for tuning in. So one more episode of Legends to go before the season wraps up. Like 7 seasons of Legends of Tomorrow. Like whoop, child. And we'll see what happens. Obviously everybody doesn't stay in their own timelines that long, because we all saw him in the trailer going to help Alan. But we'll share your thoughts. We'll see how this ends when the show when the season finally wraps up. Who gets to stay? Who gets to go? Who's gonna be who's gonna be happy? Who's gonna be sad? And so on and so on. And what happens to good Gideon and evil robot Gideon as well. So like I said, check me out on Twitter. Check me out on Instagram. Share your comments about this particular episode of Legends of Tomorrow. Let me know what you think's gonna happen in the season finale. Like who are you rooting for? Like who you're not rooting for? And we will continue to talk about it. Check out my other videos, because Superman and Lois and Naomi, they're on the channel. We got Batwoman coming up as well, which is also about to end. We got one more episode of Batwoman, and then after Legends and Batwoman's concludes, we're going to be doing Superman and Lois, we're going to be doing Naomi until Young Justice comes back, and then we'll be doing those 3 shows until something else pops up in the woodwork. Thanks for tuning in, guys. So until next time, stay legit, too legit to quit, and we out this bitch!